If you've ever woken up at 3 a.m. in a tent wondering why your hips feel like they're made out of gravel, this video is for you. Many people think a sleep pad is kind of just a luxury, but getting this one piece of gear wrong is the fastest way to a miserable, freezing night in the backcountry. Today we're breaking down the 3 types of pads, the secret number that actually determines if you'll stay warm, and I'll share the specific pads that I've used to survive everything from summer treks to high altitude cold. I put links to every pad we're discussing, including my personal top picks and the ones with the best warmth to weight ratios in the description below so you can check the specs and sales as we go. Okay, so first, why does your sleep pad even matter as much as it does? Most people think it's just about comfort, like a little cushion so you're not sleeping on rocks. And yeah, comfort is part of it, but the bigger deal, especially if you're camping in anything other than the summer, is insulation. The ground is cold, like aggressively cold, and it will suck the heat right out of your body all night long. Your sleeping bag does almost nothing to insulate you from below because the insulation gets compressed under your weight. So your pad is doing that job. And this is why you can have a 20-degree sleeping bag and still wake up freezing even in the spring because your pad isn't doing its job. So sleep pad choice, it genuinely matters. All right, so there are 3 main categories. First, foam pads. Think something like the Thermarest Z-Lite Sole or the Nemo Switchback. These are kind of the tanks of the sleeping pad world. You literally cannot puncture them. They're stupid cheap compared to inflatables, and they're bomber reliable. The trade-off is they're bulkier, so you usually need to strap them to the outside of your pack, and they're not going to win any comfort awards. But a lot of thru hikers swear by the Z-Lite specifically because when you're doing big miles every day and you just need something that works, that pad works. It's also pretty decent for just sitting on during breaks, using as a wind block, all kinds of stuff. Foam pads are super versatile. Then you've got your self-inflating pads. These are kind of the middle ground. You open the valve, they inflate themselves partially with open cell foam inside, and then you top them off with a few breaths. Something like the Thermarest Trail Scout or the old school Neo Air Trekker style pads fall into this category. They're more comfortable than straight foam, reasonably durable, and they pack down a bit smaller. Not as small as a true inflatable, but smaller than foam pads. And these can be a solid starting point for a lot of people just getting into the gear side of backpacking. And then you've got your fully inflatable pads. And this is where the magic happens for comfort and packability, but also where you gotta start paying a bit more attention to what you're buying. Pads like the Thermarest Neo Air X-Lite, the Sea to Summit Etherlite, or the Nemo Tensor are absolutely beloved in the backpacking community. They pack down super tiny, like as small as a Nalgene. They're incredibly light, and the comfort difference compared to foam pads is pretty significant. The trade-off is they can puncture. They're more expensive, and ultralight inflatables can be a little crinkly and loud when you move around. The older Neo Airs were famous for that, but the newer versions have improved, though if you're a light sleeper, it's something to pay attention to. And just a tip with inflatables, they can take a little while to inflate if you're just using your lungs, which is why I started carrying a tiny rechargeable pump. It's about the size of a shot glass, saves your lungs, and keeps moisture out of your pad. I'll link the one I use below. It's easily one of my favorite $25 gear upgrades. Okay, so here's where I want to slow down because this is the number that actually matters and most beginners have no idea it exists. R value. So R value is the measure of how well your pad insulates. The higher the number, the more insulation. And since 2021, there's actually been a standardized test for this across the industry. So the numbers are finally apples to apples when you're comparing brands. Here's a rough way to think about it. If you're camping in summer conditions, warmer temps, you might be totally fine with something in the R2 range. 3-season camping, spring, fall, some shoulder season stuff, you probably want to be thinking R3 to R4. And if you're getting into winter camping or high altitude where nights are legitimately cold, R5 and above starts to make a lot more sense. For most backpackers, starting with something in that 3 to 4 range is usually a good starting point. The Nemo Tensor, for example, comes in a variety of R values depending on the version, and the mid-range models make for a really solid 3-season option. And the newest version of the Neo Air X-Lite, the NXT version, bumped up its R value to around 4.5, which is impressive for how light it is. And if you want to go full winter mode with the maximum warmth, something like the Thermarest Neo Air X Therm is sitting at R7.3, and it is a beast for cold conditions. And just a pro tip, don't buy a pad just because it's on sale. If it's a R1.8 and you're headed out into a 35-degree Fahrenheit night, you will be cold. And if you want one pad that can handle just about any condition, look for something in that R4 to R5 range like the X-Lite NXT or the Nemo Tensor All Season. Now let's talk about weight for a second, because the more you backpack, the more you start paying attention to ounces. Gram weenie culture is still real, and I'm not saying that you have to buy into it fully, but weight is something you'll probably start caring about the more miles you put in. Most backpacking sleep pads fall somewhere between 12 and 25 ounces. The lightest ultralight inflatables like the X-Lite or the Nemo Tensor can dip into the 12 to 16 ounce range, which is pretty impressive for how much warmth they provide. Once you get below that, you're usually paying more money, sacrificing insulation, or giving up some durability. If you're just getting into backpacking, I'd prioritize sleeping well over trimming a few ounces here. A quality pad that keeps you warm and comfortable will do more for your overall experience than shaving a little weight. And something that does affect the weight also is the size and fit of the pad. So before you click buy, check the dimensions. Most pads come in regular, long, and wide sizes. I personally use the large version of the Neo Air X-Lite. It's a few extra ounces, but if you're a side sleeper or you toss and turn, having those extra inches means you won't slide off into the cold ground at midnight. If you're over 6 feet or have broad shoulders, trust me, get a larger size pad. It's the best weight penalty you'll ever pay. All right, so to bring it all together, when you're picking a sleep pad, you're really balancing a few things. How cold does it get where you're camping? How much weight and bulk do you want to carry? Your budget, and honestly, just personal comfort preference. Foam pads like the Z-Lite Sole are reliable, affordable, and basically indestructible. Self-inflating pads are a solid middle ground. And inflatables like the Neo Air X-Lite, the Nemo Tensor, or the Sea to Summit Etherlite are going to give you the most comfort and packability if you're willing to invest a bit more and take care of them. Whatever you end up going with, just please look at the R value. That one number is going to do more for your night's sleep than almost anything else. At the end of the day, your sleep pad is the foundation of your entire sleep system. So match your R value to your environment, pick a width that actually fits your body, and you're going to have a much better time on trail. All the pads I mentioned, from the indestructible foam options to the ultralight inflatables, are linked below. And if you've got the right pad, but you're still struggling to get a good night's sleep, check out this next video where I break down the most common sleep mistakes people make out in the woods and how to fix them. So match your pad to the ground you're sleeping on, don't skip on the insulation, and I'll see you on the trail.